center.
Stand by for contact.
The following program is for adults only. Parental guidance is suggested. In other words, we're gonna be fucking swearing and talking about fucked up shit. Get your goddamn kids away! Leave me alone!
You're listening to Cult of Contempt podcast.
This is Out and About with Jim Cook. That's right, we sent Jim Cook to talk to people.
We're gonna party all night long, 'cause we don't have any kills. Name a celebrity that you would have sex with.
Eugene Hoots from Gogo Bordello.
Both have Joan Jett on our list.
Fair enough.
Actually, I want it to be me, you, and Joan Jett, and it's all about Joan. I'm okay with that.
You know, Brad Pitt going down on me would be kind of awesome.
Roman Reigns from the WWE. We've already talked about Dave Grohl. You never answered me.
I'm not gonna sit in the corner and jerk off and watch Dave Grohl bang you.
No, that was not the question, but thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
My answer is Jello Biafra. I want him to have a holiday in Cambodia in my ass. What is your favorite word?
Whilst.
I like precarious.
Petrichor.
Hubby, because I say it all the time because I'm always talking about my hubby.
Gross.
You fucking motherless bitch.
Adrian, I am gonna lobby really hard to get you on the show.
Why?
Because I think you'd be a great guest. Phil will be there. It'll be all safe and on the up and up. Well, no, Phil's there. It's not going to be safe and on the up and up.
This is Jim with A Book of Lies. Formerly Funch, Nerve Tonic, and other bands that nobody really knows of. Welcome to the podcast of
Cults of Contempt.
Exactly.
Oh my god, I can't use this.
Hey everybody, it's Dusty with another NJ Music Minute. So in spring of 1994, some fresh out of high school radicals formed a punk band full of snot and sneer to bring back its late 70s roots. Claire Zahn, Jamie Zahn, and Lee A. Zahn grabbed some instruments and began to play. Very poorly. By 1995, they recorded their first 4-track demo. In local band terms, it went aluminum foil. It sold for 50 copies. For some Headaches Records bands like Those Unknown and Broken Heroes, their stage shows had audiences saying, "What a bunch of assholes."
We're not Zooms, we are the song. For the 18th time, I'm playing this because we had shot their fucking so up and enjoy a fucking pure half hour, fucking pure fucking punk rock. Got it? Fuck yeah.
The band split when Lee used to fight demons in another dimension. So the original Zom will be with us tonight. Enjoy!
We're over here. We're here. It is I, Paul Mold, and it is them in high definition.
So what do you think? All right, so Lindsay Decker, who's one of our favorite listeners, you get to decide, do you want us in color or in black and white? Now, keep in mind, black and white is far more kind on me, because I'm of the pale persuasion.
But you're
You
mostly
are?
white anyway.
Yeah.
I must be seeing things in negative.
You're only seeing negative? Way to go, Lisa Loeb.
That's your white jacket, pal.
You look like you're trying to be the cool teacher in some 80s movie, and he looks like
Get
he
a
should
new
be...
joke. You told that joke 2 episodes ago, and I'm the one that actually
God,
listens.
you're so obsessed with this podcast. I don't even listen back. And Paul looks like he should be like hosting like a white zombie movie marathon or something.
I thought Jim's jacket was paisley, actually. I don't know. If
No,
it's
that's
the
the other jacket.
that I'm
I
wearing.
saved that for the special occasions. Woohoo! When the Disasters record comes out, it's gonna be crazy. I'm gonna have like little people passing out pixie sticks because cocaine would probably get Bob in trouble. And it's something Freddie Mercury used to do. I actually looked it up. You can actually hire a little person, but my price break is about $100.
You can hire a little person?
Yeah, they're actors, but they'll do stuff. And
What
I
are you
think they
going
have
to
their own
hire them
costume.
to do besides your weird slavery at your record release?
No, I just thought it'd be kind of fun to have like a carnival theme. I got a actor that you all know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's Anthony Barber. He's looking for his ringmaster costume.
Nice.
I'm gonna have him introduce us. I want it to be a 3-ring circus. I want an introduction. I want a spotlight. I want to be carried out like Lady Gaga. I don't know.
What's the meaning thing?
It's
are you
just 8
making these-
years I've been waiting for this record to come out. So
What's the meaning thing are you making these little people do? Are they gonna like carry you out like Lady
the
Gaga?
joke is that Freddie Mercury used to have them carry around coke, but we can't do coke because coke is illegal. And there's a war on drugs going on, Phil.
So
it's a war, Phil.
So you're making them.
So they're gonna
drug
pass out like
mules?
pixie sticks or I don't know, Snickers. What would you like at a show, Paul? 1,000 grams. Ding dongs.
Heath.
Heath is an
Nice Heath
underrated
bar.
candy bar.
I think it's. I think
Toffee,
it's one of
caramel.
one of the great like secret ice cream toppings.
The Blizzard, the good people at Dairy Queen started that with the Blizzard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was always my favorite thing. I didn't realize it was a candy bar for a long time. I thought it was just an ice cream topping.
Huh.
I only knew because I worked in a drugstore, so I was very familiar with candy inventory.
I thought that was gonna go in a
Candy.
different direction.
I used to work at the mall for like one summer at this like weird, almost like paranoid candy shop. You know, like the Seaside Candy shop that was like in the Willowbrook Mall at the end of the food court. And it was just this couple that argued all the time, but they gave you all the free candy you wanted because they were afraid you were going to be stealing it anyway. So I used to come in there high as fuck and get like a cheese-filled pretzel and just down some fucking candy bars and help people. It was amazing until they started to fucking harsh my eye. Then I had to quit that job.
Oh boy.
By the way, Terry's with us, guys. So we have
Hey
a
everybody!
guest.
For those
What's up,
from the
guys?
Sussex County area, this is Claire Zahn, the Mighty Zahns. My first band, the first guy I jammed with.
Does anybody remember where Sussex County is? No,
It was lost. Like
a lot of
that
cows,
that
a
city
lot of
in that
country.
weird Emlyn like Shyamalan movie.
There's a layer of permafrost. I'm pretty sure,
Yeah.
like there's Shangri-La, Kunlun, and then
No,
Sussex
no,
County.
no. Our good friend Sean Henry of the Tonighters is always plays Newton.
There. Yeah, he lives up there.
He's got a show coming out. I might go check it out just to see the venue. And I have friends from Newton who might meet me there.
Yeah,
There
we'll
were-
do.
I have a few that
there
might
were
try to
good
kill me.
places to hang there. I mean, like, you know, it's like you had to watch yourself, like Moss Eisley, I guess. You know,
You better watch yourself. This is Sussex County. This is barristers in Newton.
Yeah, he used
You
to do
know,
that
I mean-
for fucking year. I've had to hear him do the cantina scene
Yeah, I
for
mean,
like
it's-
25, what 30?
There
No,
wasn't
we're like
much going
we're
on
like
up there. I mean, there
32
was,
years or something like that.
You know, there was Headache Records. There was New York Hardcore. There were like, you know, bands that did their thing up in Northwest Jersey, and then the Poconos had their kind of, you know, offshoot scene as years went by, but
Wow.
up in the Scranton area. So
No shit.
Scranton, they still have the
Scranton,
scene. We played
PA.
there.
Yeah, I mean, so you know, it's
College is there, so.
but
The Office.
it was tough.
The
I
Office.
mean, times were
Michael.
hard. We used to have to scrape the change off of the you know, the bottom of the car mats, like underneath there, to, you know, just to make the tolls to get to the shows.
Yeah, back when you could pay tolls with change.
Back
Right?
when, yeah, back,
Now
you
it's
know,
like fucking. I have to give you dollars. What the
Easy
fuck?
Pass. Everybody would just
Easy
run
Pass.
the tolls and throw like whatever random change they had at the booth back in the
Yeah,
day.
you
So
can just get away with that.
we're
just
dating
tossing some
ourselves
shit
here
in,
a tad, but
Did you ever buy tokens?
Yes, parkway tokens. Anybody that my grandparents lived in Tom's River for many years, so like I have that like beach connection. Always did, but I would summer there.
Terry was on the
sometimes.
championship Little League team at Tom's River.
Yeah,
no, not true at all.
No, I was not. Not at all true. Total disclaimer. But if I were.
And so you guys grew up together, right? And then Jim says that he got all the girls until college.
Jim
and then you
definitely got all the girls.
No. There was a paradigm shift in college because I realized that I spent a lot of time being hungry and eating, and my physique started against me. But then, so then I became like the bottom feeder of college chicks.
I did too. I spent a lot of time. I was as hungry as Jim was.
No, actually,
I guess all the speed that I did in those years, they must have like somehow like I don't understand, but apparently the
if you're
drugs
going on
had
a diet,
positive
marijuana
effect.
should not be part of your diet. Just saying, it was something I used to do in my youth, and
drugs and food went out again, but mostly drugs.
Hence the Food and Drug Administration. Isn't that why they're bundled together?
It's
right?
balance.
I mean, all
I
food
thought it was a
contains
conspiracy
the
for the
nutrients and
cotton
chemicals you
industry.
need, and all drugs contain everything else that you also need.
It's the yin and yang, the stoner and the hamburger. It's both those things.
So I mean, Jim and I have known each other for almost 40 years. As scary.
We met in the second grade.
36, 37 years.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then
it's like doing time with this guy.
And with me too. I mean, it's it's like
the thing was,
nice.
He kept moving away, but every time he moved away, he would always call. I'd be like, "Hey, you want to come over?" And I'm like, "You're only like 15 minutes away."
So like Jim
they
and
moved
I,
to a different part of
we
Sussex.
wanted to get away from each other, but we never could. We never.
It
really
gets worse.
wanted to.
It gets worse. He moved to Dingman's Ferry. But
Hence
some of
the Poconos connection.
So, but like some of the most fun summers I ever had was just like smoking cigarettes for the first time, drinking, on a more regular basis, and other things.
And
up
also,
in Dingman's Ferry.
Might I add, eating spoiled cold cuts.
Oh, that was a bad
That was
night.
the bane of the summer existence.
Oh my god!
Well, I don't feel so good.
But the people up there were so fucked up. They were like, "Oh man, bad acid, right?" And I'm like, "No, it was him."
Yeah, I mean, people were dying of heroin
But I should've played it
overdoses
up,
at 6
like-
years old back in 1992 up in the Poconos, but it didn't make national news because there was one paper for the county, and it's and it covered both sides of politics, so it's
It's been happening for a long time, folks, and now the drug companies made it happen. So when did you guys get interested? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
When did you guys get interested in music, and did you start playing together at a young age?
Always. Like, we would be playing like with toys, and I think we were playing with Sectars, and then his stepdad John, he had like a band, and they were doing Bang a Gong.
Oh yeah.
And then we stopped playing with our Sectars, and.
What the fuck
checked
is
it
a
out.
You don't know what a sectar is?
Was a 8-inch action figure.
Oh my god.
Nice.
One of the greatest
Not sexual
riding
at
beasts.
all.
The figure goes on the beast, but the beast is like half puppet, and it's like this fucking
The
spider.
finger goes
it was
on
put
the
up by
beast,
Coleco.
not
Google
sexual
it.
at
It's a
all.
cool toy line.
There was a
Dan
hand
Larson does a
puppet
whole thing on
spider.
it.
Okay.
But yeah,
But anyway, so and then we and then we would listen to the radio, and then we would talk about music. But then, by the time the whole metal thing started happening, like 85, 86, there was metal kind of had like three phases. There was like the Quiet Riot, just an LA band doing a cover kind of phase. And then Quiet Riot was just right place, right time. They weren't really that great.
Right.
Come on,
if you listen,
great song.
No. But if you listen to the original by Slade, it is a better song.
Yeah, okay. Slade is fucking, I think, a better band than Quiet Riot.
For sure.
I agree.
They can't fucking spell, but they're awesome.
Yeah.
But I think Randy Rhoads was in that band too. That's the other thing, right?
Randy Rhoads had a connection with Rudy Sarzo, who was in Quiet Riot.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were well, Rudy Sarzo toured on that infamous tour where Randy Rhoads had died, and then they had to get the dude from Night Ranger to fill in.
Night Ranger.
So let me just disclose, like I introduced, and I'm blessed to say I've introduced Jim to a lot of cool music, but like he like eclipsed me, like apex me years ago on like the music history knowledge. Like now he like spins my head with this sort of stuff. So,
wow.
I didn't know that like Randy Rhoads,
the wizard,
like, had a, I knew he like I thought he was
you know,
like a
I
set
really,
musician
I don't
in Quiet
read.
Riot, but,
I make my wife read rock biographies and then just give me the liner notes.
And yes,
so it gives me
Allie
great
is
stories for
also
the
an
podcast.
she's an incredible wealth of musical knowledge, and you know.
Did I ever tell you guys
teaches
that
me
like she's
riffs
reading a
and-
book about John Fogerty? My uncle is Stu Cook from CCR. I don't really like to brag.
Really?
No,
I've
not
never
at
knew
all.
that. You know, case in point here. You know, his uncle is in CCR, but you know, it's not really. I don't know. Fortunate
It's
Son.
funny
isn't
that
an
there's pictures of my
influential
Uncle
song, I
Rich,
guess.
and he kind of looks like Stu Cook.
That's hilarious.
And
Fortunate nephew. Fortunate nephew. The James Cook story. I think it's time. I think it's time to be James now.
James
Cook.
Oh wait, would it take off the glasses?
No, no, you leave the glasses
James.
on. I think I'm just gonna call you
James.
James.
You know,
James and Philip.
When I first met
James,
Jim, I called him
like
James.
Terrence and
actually.
Philip.
And I also called Jim's mom Mrs. Cook, which was a huge, like, you know,
Big
that was like
mistake.
blasphemous.
Wow.
She's like,
Faux pas.
call me Janet.
Yeah, it was.
Except she like called me Janet.
So you know, Terry's mom would work in the summer, and she didn't really have childcare, so she kind of like, you know, she would drop Terry off, and we just hung out in the summers, like, you know, and just did, you know, weird kid, 10-year-old
kids.
stuff.
We played with guns that didn't have orange tips on the front.
Yeah,
so,
like
you know,
guns that look legit. Like,
they were like they looked like
I
real
wish I still
submachine
had them.
guns.
I had those like those intense toy guns that were like replicas. That and then apparently in the late '80s, people were just like robbing liquor stores with toy guns
and getting all shot up.
So
which
we
we didn't
had
know. We
these.
didn't know they were getting shot up.
Well,
You know,
a kid early on too got shot up. They were holding the Sega like blaster.
You're
that
right.
was a
Yeah, I
Master
remember
System.
that.
Oh my god, that doesn't even look.
No,
I guess maybe
that
in the
doesn't
dark.
look like
I don't
a gun
know.
at all.
like Megatron, for instance, is like a P-38
Yeah.
Walther. It's like it looks like a real freaking gun.
I
Like
always
no
thought
wonder,
that was
like no
insane.
wonder people got shot. And it's terrible, but it's you know, it just gives a.
I'm trying to remember the company, and some of the handguns were like weighted and were part metal, and
Oh yeah.
like
I
it was
remember that.
crazy. And there was like a
Good
whole
old
aisle in
days.
Toys R Us just dedicated to these replica guns.
And like, how much are those probably worth now?
Speaking of rest in peace, Toys R Us, a
Yeah.
New Jersey company. You know, I mean, Bain Capital put them out of existence.
they made a
long
bad deal with
story
Bain
short.
Capital, and
You know, usually.
And they made some bad
I don't want to get
calls.
political, but it's these leverage buyouts are a huge problem for small or you know even large nationally owned or locally sourced corporations, and you know mom and pops too with you know.
Man, I mean, I'm kind of a conspiracy theorist, and I just think that you know, there's basically just a few companies around for any industry that you have. It's just an octopus with all different lines everywhere, and they pay off the fucking politicians. And I think Trump
It's an octopus.
is just gonna fucking piss people off and just escape with all the money. That's all he's doing, and all the money's going to Asia now. So what the fuck, man? We need to get more local. We need to get more diversified. We need to break up all this shit.
Definitely.
So you guys started the Zoms together. You know, he sent me an email that said J-Zom, and I was like, does your internet say Jism? And he was like, no. He was like, often, no.
No, but it should
doesn't
have.
say Jism.
That's awesome.
no, I was pissed because I
Zoms.
told you about the Zoms once.
J-Zom.
No, I shared with you my experience of the Zoms, and you completely forgot. And I was just like,
How dare I?
I don't know. I'm just too
Damn you.
sensitive these days, I guess. I don't know.
I'm just fucking
Look,
with
man.
you, man. Look, man.
Look, man.
Let me
thing is-
lay it on your hair.
All right, so Terry wanted to get in with these like punks, and
Okay.
he's like, I need a band, and he's like, hey Jim, where's your drum set? And I was like, I traded it to this guy Scott Neal for a Warlock bass, and all I could play on the Warlock bass was War Machine by Kiss, boom, 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 and it wasn't very good, and I got bored. And I listened to like a Mr. Big record, and Billy Sheehan is deceptively good. And I just got discouraged. And I couldn't hold the strings hard enough, and it was just a disaster. So I'm a hyperactive guy, so I got my drum set back, and you know, so we started this band, the Zoms, and we grabbed my friend Lee, who I went to high school with. And,
The
who
Rizzler.
now he's in other dimensions, like, you know, fighting the good fight to keep demons out of this dimension.
Wow.
You know, and out of space.
Carry on, Lee.
Yeah, great
We'll
work,
see you
brother.
soon. come back from the other side safely and
Oh wait,
kill
we're
lots
saving a
of demons.
transmission. Oh, that's a good point, Lee. Anyway, so
That's hilarious.
we played a bunch of shows and we had fun and it was just I don't know, it was my first like band and you know, we had a good time. We got to play this really awesome festival up in like Lake Apacon.
No shit.
Like the Broken Heroes guys were affiliated with like some kind of clubhouse from a development or a neighborhood or
That's
something.
right. Yeah, that was.
They had like 26 bands on this thing.
Who was on?
Oh, it was a great
The
show.
Pist was the biggest band. They were from like Connecticut. They were
the Pist, Banner of Hope.
they were the headliner.
The
Banner of Hope. Blank 77 was there.
Blank 77, I remember.
But
They
the
were good.
best band of the day was like third, and they were called Grieving Eucalyptus. They were from PA. They were this.
They were
They
an
wore
analog
bowling
band.
shirts.
Yeah, like
They did everything in mono. They had tube amps, and they had this cute little girl in a bowling shirt and a dress named Mindy, who had a beautiful voice.
Huh.
And I think I gave it to you on that thumb drive, but no, maybe I didn't. Anyway, so I just fell in love with that band, and that's where I wanted to get out of punk, and I formed the Atom Beat because I liked this idea of using 50s chord progressions to make people dance, because the Zombs played with Grieving Eucalyptus at another show. I think it was at a one of the Joel shows up
I
at
think
that.
it was at
yeah,
one of
Peter
Joel's
W.
shows,
Hole.
right?
And because we never really did the Ted Flatus shows. There were a couple things going on in Franklin at the time.
And not that Ted put on a ton of shows either. I mean, you know,
But
obviously
he didn't have
he was
like the
working,
phone
he-
booth.
you know,
we never
he
got
did,
in there.
but-
We talked about it, but we never
And
got
it's
in.
Same with Anthony Trance. You know, we never got in really with the. I mean, we played
tried to
with
get
a
the
lot of the
Pipeline.
pipeline bands, but Anthony, unfortunately, around that time was starting to really suffer with his problems with addiction and so forth. And you know, obviously, you know, North Jersey legend in terms of putting shows on and you know, really supporting the scene.
Wow.
And
So one day, Terry and I were angry for no reason, got really drunk, and decided to put paper plates and spell out Zombs because the Misfits were going to be there, and we wanted to meet the Misfits.
And this was the Michael Graves incarnation with you know, Doyle and Jerry and
And it was like a
good
meet and greet
stuff,
thing.
but it was a revival, and
we were all right. We were punks. We were upset because he was charging like $30 to, you know, and we thought it was not.
Yeah,
It was
I mean,
very unpunk rock.
to set the record straight with Joel, I mean, I think he meant well for the scene, but I question.
He did a lot for the scene.
I
and
questioned
he brought
the
Grieving
way in
Eucalyptus to
which he
Jersey.
went about it at the time. You know, I really recognized it as profiteering, and I mean, we were older than Joel was. He was kind of a high school kid putting on shows, and you know, like
But
I mean,
in
I think,
retrospect, we were the jackasses.
Hey,
we
I
got
mean,
trashed and made asses.
don't get
out
me
of
wrong. I
ourselves.
mean, I did a lot of things in my younger days that I regret. Being an asshole and just causing chaos was, you know, at times one of them. So
There
know.
was a moment. I don't know the difference between. I guess it was Michael Graves and Jerry. And you know, when I see pictures of Jerry now, he didn't look like what I remember when I met
I don't
him.
think he was full on stage, like, you know.
Yeah, because now he's
done
like
up,
all like kind of like white skeleton face now.
Right. I mean, the
it's
Misfits
really well
did
done
that
makeup. Actually, the
periodically
picture I
with,
saw.
you know,
but,
Yeah,
and
that's
on
right.
shows.
That's
and,
true, they did.
But anyway, so like one of them, like you were saying something, and you were kind of talking in his personal space, and one of them just looked at the other one like this, and I was like, and then Lee was like, "We gotta go, we gotta go." And I didn't want to fuck with him. I was really drunk. We were into like Sam Adams at the time, so we had like cherry wheat and honey porter. He bought a 6, I bought a 6, and then I gave him 3, he gave me 3, and we drank. Just to punch him freaking Sam Adams.
You know, I mean, and
we were
granted,
just like we just had this energy, this enthusiasm, and,
We
and
did,
as
I
the
mean-
Clash say, anger can be power, but we didn't know how to use it. We misdirected it. We missed so many opportunities. But
They were in the news this week.
the Clash.
No, Doyle.
Oh yeah.
Oh right, he
That's
doesn't
right.
like doing meet and greets.
Yeah, did you see that article?
Poor baby.
I can't imagine why he doesn't like doing meet and greets. I mean,
No.
Yeah, like
oh
my god, those fucking assholes from the Zombs.
or a bunch of fuckers gonna show up with paper plates taped to their chest, but like,
No, he has a good point where he says like people download his shit and that's why he doesn't get paid. Like there's so many more people that are stealing it than buying it. And that's a problem. But conversely, I don't think his shit is very good. Doyle like post Misfits anyway. Like I think that's why people aren't buying it. Like if I thought it was good, I would buy it. I don't think it's good. I listened to it once and never listened to it again. Like usually I hear it on YouTube or whatever.
I would contend, like in the days before online anything. I mean, the way I listened to my first Misfits record, I was lucky enough to receive through my pops, my stepdad, John, this said
John guy,
said guy who played rock and roll, played garage music, was a great guitarist in his own right. Taught me a ton of stuff.
Thing was, John was kind of a hard ass, but
he was cool.
But he was
cool in that
cool.
regard.
Because my mom would call ahead and say, "Don't let my son smoke there," and then I'd be out smoking, and John goes, "You're not supposed to be smoking." And I was like, really? And he's like, "Give me one." And to give him a cigarette. He smoked one of my cigarettes. But then, but they didn't care. They let me smoke all weekend. But there was this cool moment with you and your stepdad. I remember, he was curious about Metallica, and he had gotten you into all this other stuff, and then you were letting him kill them all and stuff, and he started learning the thrash.
So it's,
But anyway, I'm opening too many windows here.
A coworker ended up loaning him to loan to me original pressings that were unopened of Walk Among Us. In God
Where are they?
I had to give them back.
Oh.
In God We Trust Incorporated, Great Britain's Heroes, GBH, a bunch of other great, punk and hardcore records. For me to experience. Black Flag, Everything Went Black.
Nice. In God We Trust Incorporated. What was the big one on that?
Religious Vomit, Nazi Punks,
Nazi
Fuck
Punks.
Off,
Yeah.
all of those. But with the Zoms, Jim and I came from such we listened to all kinds of crap. I mean, we were influenced by so much. So when we were playing metal, we knew about DRI. We knew about suicidal tendencies, early thrashcore and hardcore punk.
That first Suicidal Tendencies record is a great skate punk record.
We definitely had that in our.
It's a great record.
We definitely as a garage band.
And that was the record that but I just started getting exhausted.
Punk, it's.
I hated
much like the Beastie Boys in New York hardcore. Obviously, not to compare ourselves with the Beastie Boys, but we at the time could not play our instruments the way that they, that for instance the Beastie Boys to Bad Brains could. We couldn't obviously play the Dead Kennedys or DRI or
I think we should have slowed our roll and did more groove back then.
Yeah, but we were discovering and also you gotta remember this.
I don't know.
This was pre-Nirvana when we started. Music at the time.
No.
Was hurt. Well, when we started experimenting in my garage before the Zoms formed, there wasn't. Nevermind hadn't dropped yet. We listened to that I think on a sampler record. Green Day to us was 1039 Smooth Out Floppy Hours and Kerplunk.
It was
there wasn't Dookie.
Yeah.
That album hadn't dropped yet. So we were going to Offspring and Pennywise shows for
But no. But that one chick, that one chick I made out with, she had
Karen.
She had
yes, Karen.
She had that
Hello,
Green Day
Karen,
cassette.
if you're listening.
No, that's just one of my lines. That was the first Green Day song I ever heard, and these girls were into it, and I was always into music that girls were into. Because that was that's why I owned Warrant Records, dude. It wasn't because it was fucking
dirty.
Mozart.
Hey, you know what? Where the Down Boys Go has some redeeming qualities as a single. I'm just gonna that's so not punk rock. I understand, but his music is.
What's the least
people's is
thing
people's.
you guys think you listen to?
Ever or current?
No, that's it's just so far away from punk rock, but you like it. And it's not like a guilty pleasure. It could be. I guess a lot of stuff.
I don't know. I just kept. I was brought up on 70s, album-oriented rock radio, and and I just decided I want to know what the good classic rock is. So I started with Aerosmith and Kiss, because Kiss was familiar because I liked them as a kid, because they had cool makeup. But I thought there was something there. Kiss probably. 10% of their catalog is great, and the rest is filler.
I think it's 25%.
You think it's more than that?
Yeah, 10 is harsh.
Everything after Psycho Circus is garbage.
They have 15 albums or something like that. It's 10% is nothing.
Okay.
So,
you're right.
Full disclosure, disclaimer. Yeah, claimer. What the hell is a claimer? Is that somebody who says, "Yeah, there's gold in there hills.
That's mine."
But the thing was
this was my first record.
I got into Aerosmith, and then Steven Tyler went and then I heard Hey Jude, and I was like, wait a minute, Paul McCartney did that like 20 years before that. So I was like, oh, Aerosmith was into Beatles, and I just kept going back and back and back. So then I don't know, but then I found garage rock, but even that's even close to punk. So I don't know. I never really strayed. I don't know. I used to be a fan of Phil Collins. It was the only thing I had in common with Jody.
What's to say used to be? You should still be.
Yeah.
Some of those Genesis tracks and Phil tracks have redeeming qualities. You know what I mean?
like
Duran Duran. They're far from punk. I was a big Duran Duran fan as a kid.
Yeah.
But even they were kind of out of the remains of the punk group. I mean,
But it's still pop. You know, it's pop music. I mean, but with.
But like all those Human League guys, they were all punks before they,
Well, the only difference is the drumming. I mean, like, think
Yeah.
about it. It's like you play something at a different tempo. It's a pop song. You play it fast. You play it at 240 beats per minute.
That's why I love when a
Yeah,
band
sure.
covers a song, they cover it their own freaking way.
Yeah.
Give me your own thing. I don't want to hear it perfect.
Yeah.
And
like Weezer's Africa.
it's too straight up.
It is too
And then they
straight
have these
up, right?
entertaining videos to get you to forget that.
It doesn't make me forget. It just makes me annoyed.
Are you a Weezer guy? Do you like Pinkerton or the Blue album?
Honestly, I like the album with Hurley on it. I like the Red album. Like, I like some of the later Weezer shit. Like, some of it was definitely like poppier or whatever, like super poppy in almost like a radio sense, and not like
they became a radio airplay. I mean, Beverly Hills. I mean, that was
exactly after that album. I feel like
I got a budget to pay. Gimme.
Case in point. So, like, not to get too local, but like My Chemical Romance, for instance, like. You know, like I'm going back and I'm like, yeah, you know what? A lot of what I don't want to call My Chemical Romance or Panic at the Disco emo specifically, because they've tried to really take strides and say, like, you know, we want to be considered for our catalog of work. Like, we've done some emo stuff, but
that overproduced record is a rock record.
Emo goes back to Fugazi. Emo goes back to Rites of Spring, which, you know, obviously. So it's like, and Husker Du even Jawbreaker. And Jawbreaker, you know.
I never
so it's like, there's, you know, I mean, like, so emo culture, although I was definitely critical and overly critical of it when I was younger. Like, you know, we viewed the kind of goth culture as like a derivative of death rock that didn't have like the balls that, you know, like the
There were some
Misfits
bands
or the
that
Damned did.
The Alkaline Trio was awesome. I don't know if you ever tried that.
Oh, absolutely. And Alkaline Trio is another great band. So it's, you know, like as
they were kind of emo.
As I kind of got older, like I learned to appreciate like the qualities of that stuff, like, and not being so, you know, like going back to like the whole Joe Gostin shows thing. Like, I mean, I was just abrasive and full of angst, and honestly, we hated everything, and we were just like. Just spewing our guts out and like spitting it all out 100%.
Admittedly speaking, looking back, we were dicks. We were angry.
But then that's not an apology. That's just really for like where we were coming from at that point. Like,
that was your age.
You know, I've grown since those days and like really like learned to appreciate and. We discovered the Beatles somewhere in there, which was a huge.
What I was gonna say was, what's the difference between like Babies in Black and like an emo song? You know what I mean? Like, really subject wise, it's like people have been writing about dark shit about that kind of shit.
Right.
Or like Every Breath You Take by the Police is like a fucking
Eleanor Rigby.
I think with any genre, there's a fashion, a style, an attitude that becomes part of the genre. Some of the musicians don't like that, but you know, I think the goth thing seemed very us against them, and not you know.
Well, it comes in waves. At first, it's like a counterculture, and it's only held by a few people, and then there's some tastemakers that carry it over. But once it becomes part of the regular culture, you know, it just kind of loses its cool, and then something else. Counterculture has to rise up, and that's why we have like all these flavors that get worn out. You know, we had like the 80s hair bands, and then we were tired of that, and then Nirvana and fucking, you know, Alice in Chains came around, and then we got tired of that.
Did we get tired of it, or did the music become, you know, the record executives get involved? I mean, the whole hair metal thing, it became a freaking formula. It was all overproduced. They all sounded the same. It became homogenized, and I think the same thing happened with grunge, and they were just looking for the next Nirvana.
The same thing even happened with punk.
Yeah, Everclear was declared the next Nirvana. Like what? Wait, jigga jigga ding, jigga
You know what?
jigga jigga ding.
I can't hate on Everclear. Like I like some of their stuff, but I don't see them at all as being close to the next Nirvana.
You know,
Exactly.
I think actually they even made a statement about like how they didn't understand the comparison to Nirvana. You know, like other than that they were a
They
three-piece
had
from
a
the West
couple of
Coast.
songs that sounded like that drum beat, you know, like Heroin Girl. Like they had like faster songs and Amphetamine, but like that's not like their catalog.
Right.
They don't have like a lot of their shit was kind of just.
They were just a rock band.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's
right.
why I saw them.
The guy knows a good hook, and I've heard him in interviews. He seems like a cool guy. I just hated that they kept reusing that.
I always liked that guy broke when he was like 40 years old.
I know, right?
Hair.
He had a hard life too. He was like the only white kid in an all-black neighborhood, and you know, it's like
Oh wow.
it's a tough story.
He,
It's, single parent, all the whole nine, the way you would think of, and it's like, so.
When I come home on payday, I always sing to Allie, I will buy you a gun. Make me veggies right now.
I always sing, we'll swim out past the breakers and watch the world die. I mean,
To go back to what you said earlier.
Oh, right.
You heard the new Africa cover, but did you hear Toto cover Hash Pipe?
I heard that.
That was worthwhile.
Get out of here! I didn't know
That's
that.
worthwhile.
That's
I would
awesome.
check that out.
Toto, the dudes in Toto, they're pros. They were hired gun studio
Amazing.
guys that wrote some
They're the
songs
best of the best.
just to they wanted some royalties, and they wrote like 3 good songs, and a couple of them were on Ringo's All-Star Band that Allie and I got to see in Morristown.
All right, so I have a confession to make. I'll never forget Breakfast in America. And unfortunately, the reason I will never forget it is because the album cover makes me hungry.
I love that album cover. Did you ever see Breakfast in America?
I don't know why. It's like
it's the New York City skyline, but it's done in like diner accoutrement, like salt and pepper shakers or certain buildings, and the Statue of Liberty is a waitress, and
want
it's from the
home fries,
perspective.
right?
It's hanging in my kitchen.
I've seen that. Yeah.
I owned it for years. It's got the logical song, When I Was Young, which could be perceived as kind of a
I don't really
gothy
know
song.
much about there.
I'm gonna break the
Supertramp,
fourth wall here, and Allie's shaking her head, saying that I see that album cover all the time.
It's the one compromise that we have in life,
It goes on the wall, not in the record player.
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
Nice. I didn't say I necessarily like the music
They
contained
were like
therein.
Swedish. Anyway, it was a 70s thing. I don't know. Like, I mean, you guys probably find attachment to things you remember when you were really little, just pop songs you heard.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
the first time I heard Bohemian Rhapsody, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was confused. Like, my mom had it on 8-track, and I think it actually like was a bad 8-track, and it kind of skip a little bit, so it was like so it was even weirder. It was like I don't and for a while it was I don't like this Queen, or I heard She Loves You, yeah, and I'm like, oh, that song gives me a headache. I don't like that. But then by college, all of a sudden,
I don't like.
yeah.
Stay away. So what I got from this is so you were the Zoms, you were experimenting, you were the drummer, you didn't like to be the drummer. You were the singer?
So, if you can loosely call it the singer, yeah. It was like, as much as John Brannon sang for Negative Approach, I mean, like, sure, it was shouted, screamed, angst-ridden vocals, we definitely had a heavy hardcore punk and street punk influence.
Yeah.
And then Jim comes home and says, I want to do 50s type modern music to make people dance.
And
you're like,
more
what?
steps in between
more
it.
subtle
Like
than
Terry and I,
that.
They lived together like the Odd Couple.
No, we did. I actually lived at Jim's house.
There's so many freaking times
I lived at Jim's house. We were roommates in college and dorm mates in college.
Nice.
Every long-term relationship has its challenges, and there comes time when you need space. And Terry and I took a break for a couple years.
We did, but to be honest, to the Zoms, we always respected that and what the Misfits and the Ramones and like all those really first generation American punk bands did respect was the homage to the 50s stuff. We definitely
what I was trying
still
to do
incorporated that into our songs.
Right,
Cool,
but
But then we went further than that eventually.
Well,
and it was
yeah.
Jim's idea. I mean, it's like
So then we formed the Adam Beat, and then like our friend Dan Galiotto was like in another band that wasn't really doing much, so he joined us, and then we got Lee back, and then we were doing these like sort of 50s tunes, and then Terry abandoned us to Ocean County,
Atlantic,
because he was in love. And
my
that's all I'll
ex-wife.
say
No,
about
I
that.
wasn't. I didn't understand love at the time, but cheers, cheers, Lee.
You know what? I want to know what love is, Terry.
Want you to show? Yeah, hence not showing off the singing.
No, if we're gonna be drinking and singing a song, it should be like Tuesday's Gone or Let It Bleed by the Stones.
Nice.
My ears bleed. Drunken singing.
Nice. Will not make Paul's ears bleed.
I am a good drunken singer, man. That's my wife.
So.
All right, for the record, everybody, she's like smiling and giving a big thumbs up.
Well, yeah, kind of.
Wait till you hear the Atomic Disasters record. You want to hear some drunk singing.
Nice.
Oh, you were drunk.
No.
I wasn't. Oh, yeah, busting out. I was drunk.
Busting out.
Because the song's about drinking, so I wanted to get in the character.
You gotta.
I wanted to method the whole fucking thing, man. But anyway, what were we talking about?
How the song progressed to the Adam Beat.
We stopped talking for a while, and then I was going to college, and then during the summers, Terry eventually started going to Willie P. We cleaned dorm rooms to live for free.
Huh.
And then we would just go in the courtyard by the art building and just set up the drum set, and we knew where the plug was.
Summertime, like we just jammed.
Well, it was kind of by the field, and there's that one offshoot parking lot, by the campus police. And, anyway, at least that's the way it used to be.
We can't discount ska. And the role
that's
ska
the thing I was
had
getting
in
at.
this
Like,
whole
all
thing.
the stuff that
so
we were
listen
listening
to a lot of the punk rock and oi stuff. Obviously
Ska bands would you guys?
Ska music was.
Well, we saw the Toasters in the city.
Man. I mean,
was it the Toasters or was
from
it
like 60s stuff all the way up through to the the Two Tone and the Moon Ska label days from the Toasters and
we got into Sam and Dave
like
too.
that.
And college was sort of a renaissance.
Soul music.
Oh yeah.
And I was just sort of, but then I started making mistakes. Like I was like, I really want to hear, because I was doing that lame WPSC FM where it was like hot AC, but they played a lot of 70s stuff. So I was learning stuff from there, and I really wanted to get more into Sweet. And I grabbed the cheapest, greatest hits I could find, but it wasn't like the original recordings. It was like them redoing it as a cash grab, like after the fact. And the songs didn't, the songs didn't sound right. Oh yeah, Smashes, Trashes, and Hits is a travesty.
Oh, with the auto-tune?
No.
They auto-tune stuff. They took out all of Ace's solos. They
re-recorded.
They re-recorded, yeah.
Oh, really? Thayer, yeah.
Douche. No, that wasn't Tommy Thayer. That was Kulik at the time. Smashes, Trashes, and Hits was 89.
No. This is new. They did it again. They did it like 2013. They did it.
Like on all the old stuff?
Yeah, they did Love Gun. They did.
How could you alter?
What's that song? The disco song.
I Was Made for Loving You.
Loving You. They redid it. It's like the auto tune on it is so. It's like, oh man, like they should have just not done this song. Like Gene Simmons auto tune sounds like a chainsaw.
See, I didn't know at the time what a sexually harassing bastard Gene Simmons apparently is. Like, it's like just I not to get political again, but like
do it.
Hey, what a douchebag. I mean, like,
yeah,
I didn't
total
know.
douchebag.
Like, I do honestly feel differently about Kiss now. Like, owning Kiss records and a Kiss T-shirt. Like, I appreciate the music, but like, oh man, it doesn't sit right with me. It's like,
Wait, what did he say?
He's
always been very right.
Very misogynistic, and
I'm surprised nobody's come forward to the rape with that guy, but
I don't think Gene Simmons ever
needed to.
Probably never forcefully like raped anybody.
No, he did, but he was just a jerk off, like basically.
He was totally like, I'm sure he just negged the whole shit.
Yes, exactly. He was just like,
like
it's a total prick.
Ace Frehley described in his book, which I actually read. He said he like went after pussy like he was a starving dog or something like that. Like it was going out of fucking
it's
style.
like a numbers game, and when you're Gene Simmons, it's like you could go up and say any shit. Oh, you look disgusting.
Yeah. I don't like the neg thing, but that's another conversation. But the takeaway here is So freaking Gene Simmons gets freaking crabs. They put all their costumes in the same trunk, and they all get freaking crabs. And he's like, occupational hazard, fellas. And I'm like, what? Gene, nobody's book does Gene look that great. Like, Paul makes it seem like, oh, everybody thinks Gene's the financial genius. No, right here. You know, because, I don't know. We're all creatures that just want to feel appreciated.
I think Gene Simmons is the guy that just, like, he's almost like the front guy, like Paul Stanley's the kind of the front man of the band, but Gene Simmons is like
he's got the attitude.
The sort of
he was also the merchandiser.
Not the HR rep, the PR. Okay.
Yeah, I love. There's an interview. It's like from backstage, MTV somewhere, and they're like kind of arguing like a married couple. Like, I hate it when you cut me down on camera. What are you talking about? Like him and Paul Stanley talking.
I guess, wow, it's just like...
So, you know...
Wow, that's funny.
Honest disclosure, Jim and I used to do nonsense like that when we were younger, but, like, you know, then we realized, like, what is wrong with us? Like, we're, like, freaking young dudes who are, like, best buds. It's, like, it's just so not, you know... So, it's, like, but at the same time, now, so...
The reason we took a break is because he joined a frat.
It's mud on the case. That's a long story, and I'm happy to go into it. I am happy to justify my frat existence.
My first year at William Patterson, I was feeling lonely, and I knew a dude who was in a frat, and he asked me to go to an event.
Oh, but that frat was like a bunch of date rapists.
And I said, Terry, I have nobody to freaking talk to. Like, the first month was awful. I had nobody to talk to, and I'm like, I should just go and try to, like, mingle with people. I'm not signing anything. You're like, no. Frats are bullshit. You don't need to pay for friends. Look at me, Jimmy. You're better than that. 3 years later, I see Terry on the freaking, what was that?
Guilty! Castration! Double castration!
What was that dumb Springfest? That thing that we'd always do with that?
Springfest.
It was Springfest. All right, so Terry's with his frat.
Springfest.
And he's got like short sleeve black shirt, and all the guys in his frat were like muscle, like you know, like gym rats, and they're all standing like this, like freaking Nazis. And I walked by and I was like, that's fucking Terry. Who is that?
So
he was Claire's-on, the crazy.
All right, so full disclosure, like, not to say that we were a gang, but we were like a gang essentially. Like, we were.
Wait, what's going on?
Crazy motherfuckers. Ex-Marines, guys who listen to like freaking Pantera and crazy stuff, you know, like the kid who held the freaking squat record for squats at his high school, but also had like dyed dreads, and you know, like, just again, like, it wasn't a typical frat. We were
kind of sounds like the Expendables.
Yeah, we were really more like a crew, I guess, was the you know, it's so. I'm not gonna, you know, beat around.
I didn't get it, and at the time, I was very happy.
We just happened to wear group letters, but
prepaid food, marijuana, and steady sex from an.
And we had all that too. I mean, we had all that stuff too. You know, the prepaid food and the marijuana, and you know.
Oh, he was the best. He was my RA at one point. So he would come in and he'd be like, he's like, what do you guys got in this fridge? And he'd open the fridge and there'd be beer, and he's like, I'm confiscating this and go to the other room.
Well, you know, it was a finder's fee. I mean, like, so, you know, as I said, so like, there's the pot calling the kettle black. Like, fuck Joel Gostin for putting on shows and trying to make some money in high school, but you know, I'm freaking on the take in college, you know, getting my share of beer and everything else, and you know, it's but
oh yeah, it was like paying.
You live and you learn. I mean,
I was like in the hole. He's going, I am Terry.
Money.
As long as things weren't out of hand, you know, it's. But yeah.
What's the craziest shit you had to break up as an RA?
Yeah.
Nothing.
There's
nothing
like
crazy. Just like
nobody ever
like,
pulled a gun or anything.
No, the campus police came and arrested somebody for pot, which like nowadays they probably wouldn't even waste their time with, and they'd be just like,
the campus police, they love having something to do. Are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. They ticket people. Like
so a lot of people don't know they're actually real police officers. They have to go to the police academy. They do actually care about public safety.
Do they actually get assigned to the town to do other shit too?
No. So
wait, when they went to police academy, did they meet Mike Michael Winslow, and what is he like?
They probably had to deal with Proctor, not Michael Winslow.
Oh,
Yeah.
Maybe. Wait, Tackleberry. Was that his name?
Yeah. Anyway,
Callahan.
finish your story. I totally broke you. I broke.
How did we get on Police Academy?
You said the police. They have to go to the police academy, and I just kept thinking of those delightful.
They had to go to the police.
He was making a high tower.
Stuart Copeland, Sting, and the other guy.
The Police Academy.
Yeah, have you seen all of them? Or because you were probably really young.
You know
when
what?
that came
I think
out.
I have seen all of them. Unfortunately, there were 7 missions to Moscow.
Mission to Moscow was surprisingly better than I was expecting, but that still doesn't make it a good movie. But
I want to see a new Police Academy movie.
There should be here's to a reboot of Police Academy.
I want to see like what they're going to do with Ghostbusters 3, where it's the same continuity. And you get like some of the, half the people are dead.
So I haven't seen Ghostbusters with all the girls as the busters, but
Right.
We have really run this train off the rails so far. Like, I don't know if there's ever a railroad that's coming back this direction. Like,
what, for Ghostbusters? Or
no, just in general. Like,
This whole conversation.
how did we get here?
The one point I wanted to make about, when Terry and I were kind of punks, but we would we would go to he would go to like a Monty Boston free show at Montclair, and then we go to the city and see like the Cro-Mags or go what was the other one,
Agnostic Front.
Nice.
Agnostic Front, yeah. So we see these and then we saw some ska band. Was it the Toasters or was it the
Definitely the Toasters. We saw the Toasters. So I don't.
There was a really cool band called
Shaken
Shaken Not Stirred, which had more of like what became
and the
whole
the DC.
Yeah, the Skunks, they were the first one, but then there was that other band, Shaken Not Stirred,
right? Yeah.
And that became what like Setzer was doing.
It was like a lounge ska.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was cool. They had hot suits. I was so jealous. But anyway, but ska shows were great because like you're watching like a sea of boots and braces. Just
dance, yeah,
terribly.
And it doesn't matter
then,
what color you are, what you're wearing. It's like
the bands would be like turn to the guy on your right, turn to the guy on your left, and say hello.
It doesn't.
And it was a cool vibe. It was a really cool vibe. And then all of that stuff wind up in some form or another making like K-rock by the end of the decade. Like punk had its moment, like 96, 97. It had its rebirth, and then Blondie and the Sex Pistols came out of the Woolworths to cash in. And I think Bad Religion had a big record that year.
Yeah.
But,
Stranger Than Fiction, I believe.
And Rancid was the best of all of them as far as like a punk band that could have pop sensibility. Out Comes the Wolves. I mean, I'll put that over Dookie any day.
Great record.
Any day.
It's
as far as like a seminal 90. If you want to talk about if there's some sort of like crate that goes out into space that's to represent like the 90s punk or that generation. Yeah. I like Ignition. I thought that was the good record. He's the one that turned me onto it. But
you called it.
Smash was alright, but as it went on, they just became a novelty band and they started ripping off other songs. They ripped off Puddle of Mud. They ripped off the Beatles.
But they
Get a Job is Obo Di Obo Da.
Yeah.
And there's a song that She Hates Me, but
they also have. They have
it sounds like another Offspring song.
Now,
they have a what?
Like a focus group. Like they play the songs for like some people, and it's like, oh, what do you like about it? Like, oh, I like this. What don't you like? Oh, there's not like a fun part.
So they like
that doesn't surprise me. Dexter Holland has all these advanced degrees. He's very analytical.
Every album, they always have all their albums for the most part sound the same.
Right. I'll definitely concede that. I mean,
except for one
there's
song,
always at least one song
that
that's
radio song that's like Summer Bumpin' or whatever the fuck they wrote. They had like some song about driving around in the summer. They had that song about why don't you get a job. They had like these weird gimmick songs that like end up being the single.
But you think the rest of the album has value?
Most of the rest of the albums are awesome.
I agree, and
I was good until like Ixnay on the Hombre. After that, what was the one with the mosquito and the blue cover? That one wasn't very good. I can't
even remember.
And then it was kind of out.
And they have had a lot of albums. So
for sure.
So what changed my mind about the Offspring, because like as Jim said, like I kind of got into that and then like really like loved that record, loved Ignition. We went to go see them, and then
$9
I thought they
City
got too
Gardens in
poppy.
Trenton.
City Gardens is no longer there. That was a legendary
Pennywise
club
was on the
in
bill.
Central Jersey. Social Distortion, tons of bands played there. I mean,
But that night, like, if you remember, the singer from Pennywise was losing his voice because it was the end of the tour.
Right, and Dexter Hollins
came in, and they did Stand By Me, and this, like,
together.
crazy
It was like
punk rock sort of arrangement. It was great.
But
it was great. It was great. It was that was fun. I stage dove, and like noodles went like this. Like, yeah, go ahead, man.
Before Joe Strummer died, somebody asked him, a journalist asked him, what artists today are doing stuff that you think is worthwhile? And Joe Strummer said, flat out, nobody else. He didn't name any other act. He said Offspring. Straight up, he said, I like what they do. They're consistent. They've been doing it for a long time. And that really made me go back and like listen to some of those underappreciated tracks, like Hammerhead about a school shooter, for instance. You know, it's
They have like Jennifer Lost the War.
Jennifer Lost the War.
Fucking, they have crazy songs. That
They
are
have
crazy shit.
now. You know, their radio, and mind you, go figure. It's like the same recipe the Clash used. So like the Clash had, ironically, Train in Vain, which wasn't a single, which is a hugely popular single, right? Rock the Casbah, of course, tons of other hits, and you know, but you know, you go back and listen.
Wait, what album was Train in Vain on? It wasn't on Combat Rock.
It is a London Calling track. Train in Vain. It was
that's right. It closes the record,
I believe, or it's the last one. Yeah.
Yeah, it closes. Yeah. But I think
what sees more radio play than, you know,
the problem with the Clash
career opportunities on a prior record or Clampdown, for instance, or you know, anything more controversial. But you know, the Clash understood. I mean, they knew the game.
Yeah.
So did the Sex Pistols. I mean, Malcolm McLaren started the Sex Pistols off as a publicity
I always
stunt,
saw it as like
basically.
more of like a pop band. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, compared to like the New York Dolls or something like that.
Right, or the Ramones or the
I always
Stooges.
saw them
they
as
were
more of like a polished. Well, now I see them more. When I was a kid, I thought they were a fucking.
They were worked up. They were a put together act, right?
We can't have a punk rock conversation without mentioning MC5. They literally were at that Democratic convention where people were dying, and they were the only band to show up and perform because of all the riots and looting and all the crazy shit. Like, and they played in the midst of all that chaos.
MC5 and the Stooges were in my, you know, like some people argue question mark and the Mysterians and others.
Yeah, I like that, and I like the Sonics for it too.
He's on the money with the Sonics. Yeah, there's definitely something about, you know, the chords
for sure, or the Kinks, for instance, to go even further back. I mean, obviously the Kinks were chord wise the first punk band, but so you know, like we eventually like recognized that and like. Sure, we were playing in a basic garage rock punk band that, you know, never made it anywhere by any, but there weren't a ton of people doing that stuff then. Like, not to say that we were like unique or we weren't doing anything new, but
it was still kind of not frowned upon, but it was like a dangerous thing. Like,
it was, yeah. We had like
a band, like it's not like now where it's so like. Oh, we have School of Rock. Like, there was no fucking School
No, there
of
wasn't.
Rock
I mean, it was us.
Kid.
We actually took crap for, like, when we said we're going to take Lee as our bassist. Like, we thought we'd be laughed at. And we're like, we don't give a fuck. You know? I mean, that was like, we did have that, like, kind of DIY punk rock, hardcore punk ethos that, you know...
I remember
we just didn't care. Like, we're just going to do our thing, and if you like it, great, come out to the shows. And it was very short-lived. A couple EPs, one WFMU radio
Pat Duncan show. That was fun.
That was it. I mean, it was like
nice.
That's great.
That was all.
We're Eskimo brothers with Pat Duncan.
That's hilarious.
So you know, we had our fortune to.
I did my first, I think, live. No, maybe it was my third live show ever. Was on Pat Duncan.
Wow.
Like, we were not ready to be doing radio.
I think that's what was special.
Nobody ever was. I mean,
not
like,
ready for primetime players. And what he did with us was like, there were three bands. There was this band, Anotherance, that had these two skinheads, like Pat and Dave. They were cool dudes. And
I want to we got to set the record straight on the podcast on skinhead culture too. Like, there's been a lot of misinformation. to anybody
It's
who
all the
doesn't
dead.
know,
It's around wearing red lace.
not that shoelaces mean anything about
Before I
anything.
forget, there's a new movie about skinheads and a skinhead community called Green Room. It's like this horror movie where this punk band is on the
That's
road.
about
They're out of money.
Nazis. It's not about skinheads.
But they were skinheads. Not a lot of them were.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. But anyway, but these punks, like, they showed up and they saw this Nazi stuff, and then they performed Nazi punks fuck off.
Nice.
And what was funny was the crowd respected them for it. It was, or some of them.
So in the late 60s, and I don't want to gloss it over either, because believe me, there was racism in the UK against the Pakistani immigrants in the late 1960s. But you had black...
England is, like, has a history of being racist.
Of course. You had black and white kids that wore Doc Marten boots and suspenders, and they started shaving their heads, and there were a fair amount, a strong contingent of that culture was West Indian. Jamaican immigrants, Haitians, coming to the UK from the islands, from the West Indies.
Which is why a lot of the skinheads are into the reggae.
That's how reggae and ska got reintroduced into the UK. So people don't know that. Unfortunately, in the late 1970s, an organization which is now, I believe, banned. I know it's banned in other parts of Europe, if not the UK proper. But the National Front, which was a neo-Nazi, essentially, white nationalist movement. They kind of
white nationalist is a bunch of bullshit. It's like rebranding, and nobody's buying.
Well, they stole the look of the skinhead culture in that day, and unfortunately, so.
Look,
if they happen to wear dreadlocks, then we think dreadlocks were associated with Nazism nowadays instead of boots and shaved heads. But
well, most of the people I've ever met with boots and shaved heads were right. The only time I ever had a problem, and I thought it was weird, Atlantic City.
So Atlantic City, there were weird pockets. The Atlantic City skins were basically a gang of white supremacists.
Yeah, they are.
The Allentown Patriot skins back in the
this is all in his backyard.
Long time ago. They were white supremacists, and bands like Those Unknown really tried to bring what it was originally intended to be.
Yeah. One of the smartest dudes I ever met was the drummer.
Nobody was racist. Of course, they were all educated, working class kids who And
I'm glad you said working class, because when I read the Billy Idol book, which I actually read, there was a thing with the punks and the skins with it. Most of the skins were and there was a particular band that he mentioned, but a lot of the skins were the working class.
Right, like Sham 69.
Sham 69, that's the one. They have some good songs.
Last Resort.
Borstal Breakout's a cool song.
Oh, of course. So it's so just to a lot of people.
But anyway, it was a working class
skinhead has become a derogatory and a term associated with white supremacists. So.
Yeah.
Whereas if obviously bands like the Dropkick Murphys and plenty of others, Sick of It All, have worked hard.
What do you blame it on? Our sensitive culture? I mean, now you can't wear a skin mask without being called hey, you're wearing blackface, or.
You can't wear a charcoal mask anymore.
A charcoal mask.
Are getting.
What, are they gonna have to color them?
You can't change the color of charcoal.
You can. That's right. You can't.
That's the color that charcoal.
What you should not do is, as a medical college, post in your yearbook someone in blackface next to a KKK member.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a bit much.
It doesn't seem political. It seems just ridiculous.
Even still, there was that fucking guy who was on Empire that got attacked.
Oh, and he set the whole thing up for $4,000 or something, right?
And he said, these two white supremacists attacked me at 2:00 in the morning in Chicago. And they knew what show I was on. They knew I was gay. It's like they checked every single box of what they this will be the worst hate crime of all time. If it was just oh, you're gay or oh, you're black, but in Chicago, that seemed fishy to me right from the get-go. It seemed way too specific, but I gave it the benefit of the doubt. You don't want to see anything happen to anybody.
Right.
But it's conversely, you don't want to see people fucking making shit up.
Yeah.
And just now all these people think that this terrible thing happened that didn't happen. and or if it did, it's completely contrived.
Right, the lie becomes
But there's no
true.
going back from that. It's like people just remember the incident and they were outraged.
They don't remember the
disgusting.
backstory, right?
Yeah,
they
and
don't
then
remember any actual facts that.
Yeah, I hate that diminishes actual victims of hate crimes that actually deal with shit when people just fucking, oh, this is a hate crime. I'm gonna fucking have some guys jump me. It's insane.
So we knew back in the day, we knew there was something, and there still is something called Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice.
Sharp.
The Sharp movement. Big in New York. It started actually in New York. I think now it's a worldwide organization, but. Really, what it is, it's a bunch of guys and girls who like to listen to ska and punk music that happen to shave their heads and wear flight jackets. I mean,
shit for it, or
it's and sure, but I mean, when I was younger, and I moved long ago past the need for labels. I'm just a person. It's I don't need to identify with any specific subculture. I identify with too many to really
Just calling yourself a
pigeonhole
superstar, fall into any particular category. I mean, it's a self-esteem thing.
Well,
what are you doing?
You
Oh my
happen
God,
to be a
Richard
superstar,
Lewis.
and that is your subculture. Then but I can only imagine.
Look at my new jazz hands in HD.
But so to bring things back full circle, is it's somewhere along the way, eventually the Atom Beat, we started experimenting with. Jazz, garage,
We wanted to do
rock and roll,
into any category.
just no category. We're gonna do ska beats. We're gonna do.
I said it on this show.
Whatever we want. And
when Terry wasn't in the group, Ali was in the group at the time. We played CBGBs, and they put us on a bill with one of those screamo new metal bands.
It's go
the
figure.
big, they took longer to set up than
with
than
their rap gear and shit.
Yeah. It was crazy. I mean, the guitar player was pretty good. I don't know. The girl was screaming more than singing. I don't know. The Beatles ruined me with certain kinds of vocals because now I just desire melody. I am Jim Cook, and I hunger for melody. And a hook.
Yeah.
It's got to have a hook, and punk had a hook.
I like melody too now. It's and even some of this melodic hardcore, and even screamo. I can appreciate some screamo and metalcore acts, with the musicianship or the melodies. So it's.
The one thing I always thought was curious about punk, it was a very masculine, tough guy thing, and the love emotion was very rarely talked about in a lot of especially a lot of the angrier stuff, but the Ramones did it. But then Green Day started doing it.
You listen to the Vibrators, you listen to the Chelsea, you listen to
Buzzcocks.
The Buzzcocks, great example.
I didn't love
Plenty of love songs.
The Buzzcocks, they're a bunch of saps.
They had that love song.
Yeah. All right, but I'm generalizing. There was a particular time in the 90s.
By the way, I heard. Yeah, he died recently.
Where it was becoming. It had to be tough.
That's right, he did. Yeah.
Wait, who? I'm sorry.
You told
Rick
me this. Pete
Rivets from
Shelley
the New
died.
York Dolls died yesterday or 2 days ago too. Rick Rivets, he co-founded the New York Dolls, and they fired him and got Sylvain.
So I'm gonna spin some trivia music knowledge here. So little did I know, but I recently found out that John Brannon from Negative Approach actually originally started in a glam punk act that was based off of New York Dolls.
What was it called?
I can't remember now. I'm gonna have to
Google Colors. Is it?
No, it's
What are you talking about?
John Brannon from Negative Approach.
I don't know.
Negative Approach was a very abrasive hardcore band that was really heavily Stooges influenced.
Green Hell?
But
No. It was only live that they did it, and AFI covered them too.
Yeah.
I forgot about AFI. Yeah, they were a thing.
They were. Yeah, you know what? AFI kind of became the Smiths or something now.
Wait,
AFI,
Boys
of Summer, was that them?
Same deal. I mean, they had like.
All right, I'm thinking of the wrong band.
Another little known fact about punk rock: AFI's bass player was originally the Blank 77's bass player.
Huh.
So yeah, he left to join.
Right, is that his name, Jeff?
I think it's Jeff.
K-R-E-S.
I thought it was Marty.
He was in Tiger Army too. It was great.
That I didn't know.
Yeah, he was on like some of their best shit too.
Yeah, I mean, Tiger Army had some good shit. So.
Yeah, I always liked. I like all their records, man. I don't think they ever released a bad one. They're like a psychobilly band. If you ever.
Oh yeah, I like psychobilly.
But they're kind of like psychobilly, but if the singer sounds like AFI, like he sounds a lot like I like all those AFI affiliated bands. Nerve Agents was awesome. They were like a punk band from out there. Revolution 87, I think, was the other one.
I don't know.
They were pretty good. I don't know. I like that whole West Coast thing. TSOL is like my favorite.
So speaking of John Brandon and the New York Dolls, it was Fallout was the name of the band.
Fallout, okay.
Fallout, but Jack Grisham from TSOL.
Yeah.
Same deal. I'm gonna quote the New York hardcore or American hardcore documentary, and Jack Grisham used to come out on stage in full drag, Iggy Pop style.
Yeah.
And he would just there was definitely that performance art aspect to it. Like, I'm a tough guy, but at the same time,
6'8", and he could beat the fuck out of you. So who the fuck's gonna say anything to him about
I'm
being
doing whatever the fuck I want. And we definitely as kids latched onto that in rural northern Jersey and the Poconos, because there wasn't anybody into that stuff.
Yeah.
Latched onto that and said, we're gonna do our own thing. And so it's like a lot of different influences for a very small act.
So what are you doing now, man?
Nothing. I mostly jam with these guys in their basement and play some songs on my guitar for my lady. So
he's been a big part of Spring Fling, Allie and I's annual spring party.
Awesome.
And, he's been filling in certain instruments for certain songs. We do like a live band karaoke. Well, you've been there.
Yeah, I've been there
live
several
band
times.
karaoke.
You gotta come. If I don't have my kids,
I want to broadcast from Spring Fling.
We should broadcast.
We gotta pick a date. There's a lot of moving parts going right now.
Can we schedule a date that I don't have the kids on my? God bless them. I love my two kids.
We'll talk off camera. We have respective dates. A little later this year.
That might be a good thing.
But because we used to try to beat Memorial Day or Labor Day. No, Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Just to be like the first party of the season,
Okay.
For the award season,
Gotcha.
But are we off air?
No, we're not off air. No, I'm just queuing up to close because we should probably leave soon.
Probably wrap it up. We've filibustered on long enough. Thank you guys so much for.
Thanks for
coming out, man. You're a good dude.
I appreciate
Rock
it.
and roll.
That was like Schwarzenegger and. Dylan, you son of a bitch!
Hey, got you pushing too many pencils. Are you adult, Trebek? Famous titties for 400.
That's him. It's like Sean Connery.
Sean Connery. All right, I got. Since we're talking about impressions, your Vincent Price is really solid on.
I'm sucking his dick every week.
Oh. Wait, you know about what goes on?
I remember when Burt Ward sucked Frank Gorshin's genitals, and he had class with Cesar Romero.
Who buy your supercock around here?
I think on that note, Terry, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
We're out of here.
Rock and roll, motherfuckers! Peace!
And that was the Punk Rock Show.
Nice.
9:30.
We hope you enjoyed our presentation of Contempt Podcast. If you have any questions or comments, or want to hear your band on the show, just write us at cultofcontemptpodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to see back episodes of the show, youtube.com/Plan10Studios, cultofcontempt.org, or right here on Facebook, Cult of Contempt Network. Even check us out on Instagram at Cult of Contempt Podcast. You want to reach Paul? It's at Paul Mauld on Twitter and Instagram, and Paul of the Living Dead on Facebook.com. Phil Perry, the writer, on Instagram, and his Facebook fan page at Phil Perry, the writer. I'm Jim Cook at Jim Cook on Facebook, or Jim Cook Voice Actor on Facebook. You want to get a hold of me directly, jcookvoice@yahoo.com. On behalf of Paul and Phil, I want to thank you for listening. We'll see you next week at 8:15. I'm Jim Cook. Transmission out.
Stand by for contact.